Today on the Forge to Win podcast, I have John Garms. I call him Jono. He's a really good friend of mine. And we walk through his entire story in real estate. It is amazing. It's just such an inspirational story. He's gone places a lot of people haven't. He's had a lot of stuff happen to him that is just would utterly devastate individuals. And he's open and he shares that. We talk about how he developed sales skills and what he does. He talked about how he stayed disciplined and focused through his just darkest hours in his life, and how he got up and stayed on the grind. He talked about being nearly addicted to Fortnite, but also turning that into making $175,000 that year when he was playing Fortnite multiple hours a day. And how he transitioned out of that into building just such a successful real estate practice, merging his company with another company through a merger, and even starting a YouTube channel, and how that has led to him just growing and increasing his business. Jono is a great friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years now, and I am privileged to just bring him on the show. So, guys, with that being said, let's jump in. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Forge to Win podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. He is a really good friend of mine. I have known him now, I think, for 3 years. We talk often. We've gone into the battle zone together, into the trenches. We've done investment deals. We've done regular real estate transactions. We've partnered on deals. We've worked very, very closely. He was on my team for a while. I have John Garms. Now, John, he has an amazing, guys, if you guys need to go check this out. He's an amazing YouTube channel called Selling North Dallas, and just talk about creating a really good funnel, and what it means to really add value to your community and to your clients. And so, guys, go check out his YouTube channel, Selling North Dallas. If I messed that up, John, you can correct me. But I'm super excited for our conversation today, and his journey towards freedom, guys. Like, his steps along the way is extremely inspirational. Talk about a guy who has grit, who has a good attitude when things go wrong. We're going to get into some of that, and how that's turned into really changing his life and being in the right circles, meeting the right people, and really adding value to the marketplace. And it shows in his success. And so I am really, really excited to bring John Garms to you guys. John, how are we doing, man?
Man, what an intro. Thank you, buddy. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to get into your story. I want to get into, man, you've got so many good things. I mean, we've had so many good conversations. And I just kind of want to showcase that to the audience. You know, there's a lot of times our journey, we kind of internalize it because we're going through a lot, right? But I think it was Joe Rogan. He talks about, you know, act like you're the hero of your own story, right? Get your own crap together, and get better and sharpen and constantly, you know, plug away and pull forward. And I don't think, man, I just with what I know, I don't think there's someone that I think has a better attitude, that is actually aiming to win, that cares about people, at least as much as you've cared about me. And so I'm excited to unpack that. So to start, if you would start, like, where are you in your business today? Like, what does John's business look like? Kind of an overview. Who do you serve? What parts of real estate are you in? What does the investing look like on the regular retail side? Like, give us an idea of like what you're doing today overall and what your business looks like.
Yeah. So the core business is retail real estate, and a lot of realtors kind of glaze over when I say the word retail, because I think that that's a phrase that is more commonly used on the investment side. But it's residential real estate, and we do all things real estate, but our core business is helping people buy and sell and invest in properties.
I
Uh,
love that.
so do you find that when you're talking with people, Ronnie, that do people ever balk at the word retail?
I think retail it connects with what I find is there's like two options. It's like, of course I want retail. You know what I'm saying? It's like, of course I want that, right? Or it's like, oh, I want discounted, right? That it's easy to fall into a category. So I think there is a glossy avenue, but I think it's really important because it shows there's a distinguishing between on market and off market, right? Like there's a difference. There's a difference between working in a retail space and working in an off market kind of investor space. There's two different styles of homes, right? They're literally two different clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's good. So you're in the retail space. So what do you do like on a daily basis? What is that like? What's your transactions look like? Who's your, like, what types of homes do you work at? Do you work in like war zones? Do you work in like really hot areas? Like unpack kind of what you do or where you're interacting on a daily basis.
Yeah, so we are located in Dallas, Texas. Sellingnorthdallas.com takes you straight to our YouTube channel. And we'll really work anywhere inside the DFW Metroplex as it's known locally. But our bread and butter is Collin County. It's on the north end of Dallas, east of Denton, north of Dallas. And that's really where we prefer to sit. Let's see, our average price per unit. I should know this off the top of my head. Just over 500,000.
Okay.
So the cost of living here, the median home price in Collin County is 800,000, and the 500 from our transaction perspective is the average price per unit. Here, real estate agents earn a 3% commission is the standard commission. I know in some states like California, it's 2.5% is kind of the garden variety commission. Year to date, we've done just over 22 million in volume. One of the exciting things that just happened is we merged my business, my former business, John Garms Real Estate, and that of my partners, the Haven Home Team, to form Selling North Dallas. And that actually happened July 1st of this year, 2022. So we are in the throes of merging two alpha personalities and all the funness that comes with that, and building new systems and processes. And we put together a little team of 6 agents, not counting my partner and myself. And we're just out. It's funny because I think it's cliche to say, we're just out to take over the world, but we get some pretty unique looks when we tell people that we turn business away. Like, we've got a pretty specific avatar and way of describing our business to people. And I think what it does is it repels people that we don't want to work with, and they're not going to enjoy our style. And it attracts people that are just our people. Like, Ronald,
Yeah.
You're my people, like we're just hand in glove. And real estate to me is fun. And it's so much more enjoyable if you get to do it with a client that you enjoy being around each other. Like, I'm friends with my clients, and we feel incredibly blessed to have put together a program that attracts the people we want to be with and detracts those that we don't want to be with.
And guys, what's really cool, and I think, John, I appreciate you just kind of unpacking that. And I want to challenge you a little bit and saying, I think he's being a little bit too humble. Like, guys, go check out his YouTube channel for real. This guy, I mean, he's walking through multi-million-dollar properties. John has an extreme attention to detail and just like really, really cool. So that's the residential side. I want you to talk a little bit more, because we've partnered on some investment deals, right? Even recently. That's the primary business. What does being an investor mean to you? And like, how have you used the tools of exit strategies, purchase strategies to your advantage in your wealth creation? Like, what is that side, maybe not of your main business, but in your life? How have you, what's that look like now? Like, how does that influence your business today?
Yeah, that's such a great question. One of the things that Ronald taught me early on was not to pigeonhole yourself into a deal. So let me unpack that a little bit. We would get calls, and this still happens. We would get calls from investors or from wholesalers that they'll say, "I've got this deal. I want to flip it." Or I've got this deal, I've got a property under contract. I want to do a creative deal. I want to take it down subject to. I want to sell it on a wrap. So some of there's more out of the box strategies. And my encouragement to them was the encouragement to me is don't walk into a deal expecting a one given exit. Instead, look at how can we make money? We can do this and make this amount. We can do this and make this amount. We can do this and make this amount. Like, let's look at all the ways we can make money on this deal. Yeah, Jono, I really want to do my first creative deal. It's like, man, you are shooting yourself in the foot if you're pigeonholing on the exit. If that's what you want to do, I'll run my pro forma, do my underwriting on it, and if it's a deal, we'll do it. And if not, I wish you luck. But it's so much more valuable, and this is the point I want to make. It's so much more valuable if people will say instead, what are my opportunities within this deal? What is my risk? What is my profit? What is my time commitment? And then stand back and say, all right, what do we want to do? We can invest no money and make 10 grand and have no risk and a little bit of time, or we can invest a little bit and make 20. Well, all of a sudden that sounds great. But sometimes it's the exit strategy that's not the most profitable fiscally, but because of the reduction in risk and the reduction in time, it's a better strategy. So look at all of your options and make the decision based on that.
So I want to jump in right there because I want to focus on what this looks like in real time, because this is a really good point, right? The idea of look at the opportunity and ask yourself, how can I make the most money, is a question that really opens up your mind, right? It opens you up and it says, okay, how do we make this work? And I'd like to go into an example of this. And specifically, I'm thinking about Hiddendale, the deal that we did together just recently. And walk us through when Hiddendale came to you, right? When it came across your desk, what did that look like? Give us kind of a case study, because I think it will help unpack people to kind of walk through just an example, right? An example that, you even called me on the deal and said, hey, this is what this looks like. And I how you made money was different than how I made money on that deal in our partnership. So walk us through that. Like, give us that example. I'm really curious to see when you first got it, what that process was like and how you applied that to your life on the investment side.
Yeah. So the deal actually came from a wholesaler that Ronnie and I know, great guy. And I've been talking to this guy for years, and he is one of those that really had an interest in the creative side of things. And he called and he said, hey, I think I've got this deal. Let's talk through it. And he wanted to sell it to us. If memory serves, I think we were going to buy it for the sale price was $170. Yeah. And it made a ton of sense for us. And we told him, okay, we'll go ahead and take it at 170. He said, well, I've got a guy coming to look at it tomorrow. And I said, all right, what's the buy it now price? Like, what price is it where I don't have to wait and mess with this other guy? Quick rabbit trail. I don't like competition. So if I can find ways to eliminate my competition, I think that's a bonus point. So we ended up settling on, I believe, 180. And we wrote up the contract, and he assigned the contract to us at 180. There were tenants in place. There was an owner in place. She was in the foreclosure process, and there was a ton of stuff hanging off of this thing. The note was past due. I want to say there was something like 40,000 in arrears. There was an HOA lien. the owner, in fact, there's a couple of videos on this one on the channel where it shows the condition of the property when we bought it. And I mean, it was a mess. I want to say there were 8 people living in this 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Fort Worth, Texas, about 1,200 square feet. There was a lady and her dog living in the garage. If you've ever seen the show Hoarders, you can start.
We're going to put a link to that video that you did the walkthrough in the description. So there will be a link down below on this video. Or if you guys are listening to this on podcast, go to YouTube and there will be a link there. And so you guys can see what it looked like.
So we ended up locking up the contract. Well, part of the challenge was the sellers were in a cash poor position and needed cash very, very quickly and to make their transition. So long story short, we ended up the wholesaler, I want to say was going to make, I want to say we bought it for 185, Ronnie, because I thought it was going to make 15,000.
Yep.
Yeah, he was in it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He was going to make about 15 grand, and our intention was to turn around and sell it for 240, and then we would make that delta. And this adventure ensued where the wholesaler was very, very helpful in this particular scenario. Normally, when I'm dealing with a wholesaler, I just want to take the deal over, but he continued to be a liaison between us and the seller. And we sold the deal. What did we end up making on that, Ron? Was it about 40 after it was all said and done? That was
I think it was all for after fees and everything, something like that.
But there were so many things that happened in this particular scenario. Like the seller signed the contract, but then decided they weren't moving out. They wanted to move the closing date up. The hard money lender that we were going to use, we were going to try out a new hard money lender, develop a new relationship. They got upset because of the amount the wholesaler was going to make. It's like, what do you care? Like, we're happy at the price we're buying it. Who cares if the guy's making 100 grand and we're making 40?
So guys, just to kind of paint a picture here, I think this is really, really awesome, is literally the day of closing, everybody showing up. And I get a phone call. And they're like, closing stopped. I was like, what? What are you talking about? And they're like, well, the lender's not willing to buy. I was like, why not? They're like, the wholesaler's making too much money. They think it's fraud. And I'm like, what? So anyway, I call the lender. I talk to him. I talk to the manager. I get all the way up to the CEO of this lending company, right? It's a smaller brokerage company. I'm on the phone with him. And he's like, we only allow assignment fees of a certain ratio, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what does it matter? Like, why is this a big deal? He's like, the fact that you're arguing with me just makes me have even more of a red flag. I'm like, it's the day of closing. We've known all of this since before. Everything's been above board. We're literally at the closing table and you're pulling the funds out. Well, the seller was like, well, we're going to be done. Like, we're not going to sell. And I'm thinking, what the heck? I was like, can you give me 24 hours? So I jumped on the phone with my transaction coordinator. Shout out to Casey Smith. She was incredible. I called her. She's like, hey, I got somebody. She got us on the phone with someone else. We filled out the paperwork. We literally had it funded 24 hours later with a new lender, all the shebang. Got it all happened. If it wasn't for Casey, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But we all had to pull together. And we closed this deal for the seller because his lender pulled the trigger, guys. It was crazy. It was nuts. So to kind of refocus us, John, I think on the point is sometimes in the investment space, our goal is to provide solutions, but those solutions come when we're offering help to sellers, to wholesalers, to that. Our weapons or our tools to help. It's like putting a hole in the wall, right? You can do a drill, right? You can take a thing and stab a hole, right? That's like if you really don't have it, you can get a drill. If there's a stud there, right? You might need an impact. If you need a hole through concrete, there's a different tool, right, to be able to do that. And so all of these are, think of the different strategies, guys, as just different drill bits, different tools, different drill. Okay, we have the screwdriver, we have the drill, we have the impact drill, we have, you know what I'm saying? We have all these different, we have the sawzall, we have the saber saw, whatever that looks like. All of them are different tools that allow us to solve different problems in the real estate space. And in this scenario, we had to pull out multiple of them. And we changed our exit strategy, I think twice, right? It was like cash, owner financing. What do we want to do? And we settled on it because we asked ourselves, how could we make the most money out of this deal? So
with the least amount of headache.
I think that's super powerful. So guys, as you're jumping in, like with what John's doing, especially if you guys are realtors, I think one of the key aspects is when you look at a deal, when you come to a seller, or you're working, with buyers, ask yourself and ask them, John, I think you're amazing at this. How can I help you? You know what I'm saying? How can I help you? And then especially if you learn the investing side, guys, if you have a variety of tools, you choose one as your primary, which John has done. And then you have a variety of other tools that are in your bag, whether it's relationships, whether it's strategies, whether it's knowledge, whether you know the right people, you're able to bring that to the table and offer massive value to maybe not just make a 3% commission. Maybe you can make a 3% commission. Then you can partner with a construction guy. You can make a little bit more on the partnership. Then you can resell it on the back end to another one and make another 3%. Or maybe, hey, this is an investment deal. We're not going to put it on the market because of blank. I can do an assignment fee. I can get an assignment. I can help the construction. I can get equity in the deal by doing blank. Like all of that stuff is possible. And I think you, John, are just a great example of that. So before we get into the backstory, go ahead.
Add something to that. And it's so simple that I think a lot of people miss it. And it's the saying that we use internally is, it's not can I, but rather how can I? And all right, so you run into your buddy at the grocery store, right? You hadn't seen him in a couple of years. You're like, hey, Bill, how's it going? And what does Bill say? Fine. Is Bill really fine? Or is Bill given the obligatory, I'm fine? Sometimes when you ask sellers, what do you want? How can I help? They may give you a surface level answer. So I think being a student of how to ask better questions and how to drill past the surface stuff, if you can get to the real meat, or, one analogy is, peeling the onion. If you can get really good at asking questions and peeling the onion and through authenticity connect with people, you find out the real story, and that opens up this whole other sea of opportunity where you can really love your neighbor. Whereas if you just say on the surface, hey, what do you need? Well, I need 50 grand. Well, I can't do 50 grand. All right, bye. If you can really peel that back, you may find out they don't need 50, they want 50. 5 will do. 10 changes their life. And maybe if you gave this person 50 grand, they would blow it. And there's a million stories I could tell you about how giving somebody 10,000 is way better than giving them 50. But you've got to ask good questions with that. So not can I, but how can I think is a good point to drive.
That's powerful. So what keeps you pushing at the level that you do, right? And I want to ask this before we get into your story, because you guys will get this unpacked. Like, what keeps you motivated and really going at such a, if I might say, just such an elite level, right? That you're constantly beating your prior best, you're constantly leveling up. And not only that, you're gaining respect and you're gaining a name in your community, right? And you have for a number of years. What keeps you kind of motivated and operating down this path?
Well, this is probably going to be a little polarizing, but I think uh, I had a breakthrough when I really learned how to leverage. Um, I I'm not good at a lot of things. I think I'm really good at a few things. And when I experienced the biggest breakthrough, both in relationships, in my finances, it has been at times where I was willing to accept I'm just not good at this, and I am good at this. So how can I spend more time doing the thing I'm really good at instead of fighting this over here? And that led to partnerships, that led to the partnership that I'm in now. And our financial trajectory hit the hockey stick, as they say, as a result of taking years, because I'm hard headed. It took me years to finally realize, hey, if you work within your strengths, it's kind of magical how it comes together if you're able to play nice in the sandbox and partner with someone who is strong where you're weak. And it's not a bad thing if you're not a virtuoso at everything, right? I think of I don't know if we have any Guns N' Roses fans on the stream, but Slash, arguably one of the greatest guitarists that ever lived. But if it's just Slash, when Slash did his solo stuff, it didn't quite carry the same level, right? And as when he and Axel and Duff and all those guys got together, if you've got a band and the drummer's really good at drumming, the guitarist is really good at guitars, the vocals is good, right? You understand the analogy. If you can partner with people that are strong where you're deficient and you're aligned in your goals, it will shock you how quickly things can turn around and the heights that you can go to.
Guys, that's super, super powerful. I love that. So let's go back. Let's go into the story. We've kind of teased it out a little bit. You weren't always here, right? And you've gone through a lot in real estate. You've gone through a lot of learning. I think your story is very unique. And so take us back to, where did the real estate journey begin for Jono? Like, where did getting into this industry, where did that begin? And what happened, right? Like, what was that path like at that very beginning from, I'm not in real estate, I'm going to get into this. And then what steps did you take and what were some of those results?
Yeah. So I'm going to take it back a little further and then jump over a bunch of stuff and get to the real estate stuff. But it actually started about 25 years ago when I got kicked out of school. I was a B student. The school that I attended took attendance and I didn't like going. So they kicked me out 3 months before graduation. So I called my sister, who was in another state. I was in Western Kentucky and she was in Dallas working for a software company. And I was like, hey man, I'm kind of at the end of my rope. I've got about $200. I just got kicked out of school. I'm basically screwed. She's like, if you can get yourself to Dallas, we're hiring. We're about to launch this product. You may have heard of it. It's called Windows 98. I load up the car, whatever I could fit in the car, drive to Dallas. I get the interview. They hire me. And it was a customer service job. And I started getting exposed to, you think here, you should think up here, right? As a 19-year-old kid, the way that you're thinking about certain things is skewed. Let's challenge that and get you to think over here while distracting you with.
So unpack that for me. Is that like you're not thinking big enough? Is that you are like, what? Unpack that a little bit more for me.
So, oh my gosh, yeah, there were Okay. I still have PTSD from a manager that I had there, whom I care about deeply, still to this day, tell me you struggle with ambiguity. I didn't know what the hell that meant. And he explained to me that what that means is if something isn't super clear, and it's an area that you're not gifted in, you really like you get bogged down in, well, crap, where do I start? And it came across as I was lazy. And he was able to help me over certain hurdles. And I mean, it was not the point that I want to make is this was not an overnight, oh, it's not the red one, it's the blue one. And, things just came together from there. But like how to deal with people that are different. I grew up in the Bible Belt. Everybody that I knew went to church. And then I get to this big company and developed friendships with people that not only didn't believe in God, but hated him. Or, right, like just everything that you can imagine, and being exposed to cultures that I'd never been exposed to that closely. I mean, you see an Indian dude over there and you're like, that's an Indian dude, but never had deep, meaningful conversation, deep, meaningful at age 19. But you got these two young guys that are like, hey, you are really different than me. That's kind of cool. So just being challenged in ways that I grew up. I actually had a guy tell me, I don't remember how the Bible came up. It was like, come on, man, you don't actually believe that stuff, right? That's a bunch of fairy tales. And I've never been around somebody that didn't just blindly believe in what the Bible said. So on and on and on. There were all these examples. So figured out software was not for me. I wanted to go into sales, but Microsoft would not hire me because I don't have a college degree and I'd never sold anything. So it was the whole, well, how do I get experience if you won't hire me, and you won't hire me because I don't have experience? They're like, not our problem. No. So I left that company and went and sold life insurance door to door, so that I could get some sales experience. And I sucked. So there are like all of these examples on and on about, I want to be an entrepreneur. I suck at being an entrepreneur. I'm so sick of hearing I need to change my mindset. I'll just go to work for somebody else. And I would jump from being an entrepreneur to a W-2 job, entrepreneur back to unemployed, back and forth, back and forth. And in 2015, I got a call from a friend of mine who today is my business partner in this new venture. And she was in real estate, and I had an IT consulting company that was doing pretty well. And company, it was just me, it was a solopreneur. And she said, I want you to come build a call center for this real estate company that I'm working with. And they drew out the vision for it. I was hooked. I always wanted a business and I had a practice. So that's a whole nother ball of wax. And I saw this as an opportunity to have a business. Now I was going to work for a company. So, but there was an opportunity to be in business without being by myself, have a business, not a practice. And I shut down my consulting company, consulting practice, and went to work for this real estate company to set out. I was one guy building out an inside sales division, and I was basically in a closet. There was room for a stand-up desk, and you had to get out of the desk to open and close the door. Like it was a broom closet. And we did we did 7.4 million in volume that first year. Hired my brother-in-law, who was a former youth pastor, never sold anything but Jesus. And he moved to Dallas and hired a couple of college kids in that first year with myself, a washed up youth pastor, and two college kids. We did just over 7.4 million in volume and did 22 million the second year, and on our way to 48 million the third year when I separated and decided I'm tired of working for somebody else. I want to be a real estate investor. So
wait a minute. So what you're telling me is you didn't start off as a realtor. You started out like you worked for a realtor, but you were on the inside sales, and then you were introduced to the investing side.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, I think this is really awesome in this story. You were introduced to the investing side as, I'm done doing this. I'm going to go be an investor. I'm hearing that correctly, right?
Yeah, but by virtue of the role that I had to get a real estate license. But when you're around successful real estate people, I think that year so my division did just over 7.4 million. The real estate team that I was a part of, I think we did 27 or 28 million. So we were 7.4 of that. Let's call it 27.
Yeah.
And the objective was a third of our volume would come through my division, the lead generation division. Well, when you're around real estate all the time, and you're getting calls from investors, you're getting calls from flippers, you're hearing these things, you think, well, I want to do that. So I actually talked to the CEO of the company, my boss, and said, hey, I want to flip a house. He said, not yet. Let's get this thing where it's operating on its own, and we'll flip a house together. And couldn't wait. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to buy a hold property. So actually having a real estate license myself, I hired one of my agents on our sales team to find and sell me a hold property, because I believe so much in the team and the volume and the model that we were developing. I wanted to do that, right? And not represent myself in the transaction, not knowing what the heck I was doing, but I hired the team and paid them their full commission anyway. So we got our first hold property, and so you're just, by virtue of being around it, being exposed to it, you start hearing these things. You think, man, I see an opportunity to do that. And I got to the end of my fuse with working with someone else, and that's another thing, Ronnie. I felt like I was a bad employee because I think I was misaligned. Great guy. The owner of this company, but I think we were misaligned in our vision. And that's a trend that has happened throughout my professional careers. I would get into business with people and find out later that we were misaligned in our vision. Yeah. And that would lead to this slow erosion of my soul, my happiness, my joy, all those flesh things that I wasn't mature enough to just muscle through. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was broken. So in case there's anybody that needed to hear that. But at the end of 2018, it was becoming evident that, something needed to change. So I separated from the company, left on good terms. And my successor, who was one of my leaders, I stepped out. He stepped into my role. He called me about 2 weeks later and said, man, I hate this. I want to go flip houses. I'm like, me too. Let's start a business. And that was our intro into wholesaling and flipping and all of those other wonderful things. So how are we doing? Is this helpful?
No, yeah, this is great, bro. So I think jumping into that. So you jump into you build this sales team, right? And at this point, I like to consider this. It's almost like your education, right? This is you going to college, right? You're learning how to talk to people. You're learning the sales process. You're learning how to interact. You're already very, very natural at connecting with people. You say, man, I like what's happening, but the principles, the value, the alignment of what I believe I want to operate at and where they're at is just not meshing, right? Our visions are not aligned. I want to go out on my own. And I would love to say, man, it was all sunshine and roses from there, bro. You took off to the moon, right? And I think a lot of people think that, man, I've been struggling for a long time. I've been doing this. You get really excited, like, bro, we're going to flip houses. And you did. To my expect, you flipped two.
Technically,
so
we did.
Walk me through that. Like, yeah. Walk me through.
So we found my business partner on that venture, who was my former employee, which there was a potential issue there, but still like the guy to this day. we found a company that was willing to teach us how to invest in real estate for the low price of fill in the blank. So we went to a free, actually it wasn't free. I want to say it was like $100 and I could bring a guest. So for $100, we go to this hotel and it was a 1 day, one evening, and we're gonna teach you how to flip houses. That was our aim. Well, as luck would happen, it wasn't $100 to learn how to flip houses. It was $100 to hear a sales pitch, and then it was $1,500 to flip houses. At the end of I was like, you know what? I got a credit card with $1,500 on it. Let's do it. So we agreed right there. All right, we'll split everything. We'll split the profits. We'll split the costs. And I was basically the financier, and we swiped the credit card, and we were in business almost. And we start tumbling down the rabbit trail of, well, you need to set up an LLC. You need to do this. You need to do that. Come to this event. We're going to show you how to do all that stuff. And that was another sales pitch. And by the time it was all said and done, we spent $80,000 on education to learn how to flip houses, wholesale, excess proceeds. They set up a nonprofit for us. I mean, we bought the full package, and why not? We were going to make this money back probably in 1 to 2 flips. So it was January 31st of 2019, we closed on 2 houses that we bought on the MLS. I was a licensed real estate agent. My partner was a licensed real estate agent, but we were really inside salespeople. We had no idea what it meant to be a realtor. We just knew all realtors are lazy. They suck. We're amazing. So we hired this other realtor friend of ours to represent us in the transactions. So lots of mistakes along the way. Anyway, we closed on these 2 houses, one in Dallas, one in Grapevine, Texas. 2 different crews. These 2 houses are probably, 30 miles apart from each other. And we set off to flip houses. In March of that year, we did our first 2 wholesale deals, which that was kind of an interesting process. We automated the way of finding things on market and would just send lowball offers. And we had 2 people say yes and sold the contracts out, and it was great, right? In fact, that's how I got introduced to Ronnie, or your organization was. We were going to try to. Ronnie's company was going to be a buyer for us. So, long story short, on our first flip, I think we made like 7,000. Right, it was change order after change order after change order, and the market hit just a little lull there, and we made let's say $7,000.
Yeah.
On the second house, it didn't sell, and it sat on the market, and we eventually arrived at the game plan of drop the price of the house $5,000 a week until it sells, and it tumbled from 315 all the way down to 250, and it was all said and done. We lost $70,000 on that flip. Yeah. So sometimes you don't make money in real estate. I don't know if anybody needs to hear that one. But we're just like, oh my gosh, why is this not working? And ended up reaching out to Ronnie's company. We were going to invest in their package to learn creative deals. And maybe it's the approach we're taking is wrong. And after talking with the organization, they're like, hey, you're a sales guy. We need a sales guy. Why don't you just come to work for us? And that's when I met the great Ronnie Walker.
Dude, so guys, I want to focus on this for a minute. There's a phrase that I like to say is like, don't operate on an adjustable spreadsheet, right? Don't trade today for tomorrow, right? Don't hedge. I see a lot of people do this, especially with their families. Like, hey, I'm gonna I'm going to put in this 10 years and eventually I'll be able to spend time with my kids, right? The problem is your kids in 10 years, you know, if they're 2 today, they're going to be 12 then, and it's going to be harder because you didn't put in the groundwork, you know, on the relationship. And so don't trade one for another, but go after both, right? It's like you know, in the Bible, there's the phrase of like, the poor will always be with you. Like, we want to take care of the poor, but they'll always be with you. So, and people are like, well, why are they doing this $1 million building project? It's like, well, you can do the $1 million building project and help the poor at the same time. You just have to be wise about it. You can't say, well, we're just going to take this $1 million and give it to the poor. They're always going to be with you. So you need to do both at the same time.
That's right.
And I think in this scenario, guys, when you're getting out there and doing deals there, and you're looking at real estate, is to sit back and say, what he said earlier is absolutely true. One deal can absolutely make up $80,000. I've done it. Right. And they can absolutely change your life. But the question is, don't spend all your money today hoping that something's going to come out. That's a gambling mentality. Instead, take the risk by hedging the downside, you know what I'm saying, rather than jumping in. And, you know, I think you come into this, and when I met you, and just kudos to Jono. When I met him back then, Jono's a rock star, just all the way from the beginning. I mean, great attitude. He's gone through this whole thing. He's a sales guy. He's not down in the dumps. He's obviously now trying to come out of this. And he's like, yo, I'm going to the moon one way or another. Like, freedom's on the horizon. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's on the horizon. So now you get into the creative side. And, you know, from here, I want to kind of step back, and I don't mean to dive into this, but I think it's really good for people just in this, you know, decision. What would you say was the worst decision you made in that process, and how did it impact you, and how did you change? Right, you've gone through this. You just lost $160,000, right, from education to losing money on this home. Like, where were the bad decisions, and how did it impact you, and how did you adjust as a result?
So it's funny. Tom Hopkins says, I never see failure as failure, but an opportunity to learn from my mistakes. I think the failure or the mistake that I made was thinking I was smart enough to just figure it out. Now, the other side of that is, I believe things happen the way they do for a reason. I think the Lord works in mysterious ways. And had I not made some of those early decisions, I think people that know me would say I'm an authentic person, right? I try to be diplomatic, but I wear my feelings on my sleeves. I'm a crier. I have this tough exterior persona sometimes, but I'm a very emotional person, and I don't like things to hurt. I like guns, but I don't hunt, right? Like, I don't want people to hurt, but I end up hurting a lot of people because of my brashness or my bristly. When the diplomacy,
you tell it like it is.
Well, when the diplomacy runs out, it's like, okay, here's the deal, right? We're done being pitching this, so let me just hit you in the face. And what I should have done through that process is, I don't see it as a cost. I see that as a very expensive education. And one of the things that it taught me is, find smart people that care for you and are aligned with you, and learn from them. Now, I was not in a position, I didn't think at that time, to pay for that attention. So I just decided, all right, well, I'm going to pay this company to teach me how to do this, and fully expected it to be that easy. And that was very naive of me. And through that process, it led me to Ronnie, who is wise beyond his years. You're a very old soul. And we've had some great conversations. We've had some very fierce conversations, but I think that we have always been mutually aligned. And being willing to find tough people that love you and are smarter than you are, and listening to them when they tell you that is a mistake. Like, that was the learning that I needed to get, but I had to get my attention. And throughout my life, there's been many examples of where I just thought, I I know how to talk to people. I can talk my way in or out of anything. I got it. And that gets me in trouble, right? Because I'm trying to be this lone ranger out here, and left to my own devices, I head to the ditch. So that's another theme. Well, if you just take that, that wasn't enough. But when you stack that on top of you struggle with ambiguity, on top of you think you're too smart, on top of you don't need other people, and you start stacking all these lessons on each other, it was this. It was bound to work at some point as soon as I was willing to accept the lesson.
You know, the way I interpret this, and I think the story is so awesome, is when we met, I think back, and from your side, you're like, man, I struggle with all these things. When I look at that, and when I met you and we started our relationship, I didn't see it that way, right? I saw it as, here's a stallion that isn't harnessed, right? That people are trying to break and mold rather than set free in the proper direction.
Yeah,
And I think, there's that saying that says, if you tell a fish to climb a tree, it's going to feel like it's stupid. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? And I think, in your story, bro, is, not aligned, not aligned, not aligned. I think there's an aspect, and you guys will hear some of this here in a minute, but there's an aspect where it's like, you're kind of a diva, right? You're kind of like, yo, I'm going to make this happen. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn. I've got the right things. What does it take? What do you need from me? I'll do this. I don't agree with you. Like, this is why. And like what you said, sometimes, you wear your heart on your sleeve, but at the same time, you're not going to put up with just ambiguity from other people, including me, right? Like from the end, like that was a huge part of it. And so I think that the willingness to recognize on your side and be coachable and loyal, that doesn't mean being a yes man as a ball bounces down the stairs. Doesn't mean being a yes man, but it is being coachable and saying, okay, this guy's been here. I want this. And I think from your end, I want this. And let's go this direction.
That's a really good point. And I think because of some of the mistakes and relationships that I've had in the past, mistakes and relationships, not mistakes in relationships necessarily, you and I were able to have a very candid conversation on the front end of, and it probably involved the words of, listen, I'm a diva. I think I'm a smart person, but I want to learn from you. But my mouth gets me in trouble sometimes. So can we just agree on the front end to be safe and have a working atmosphere where I can just share exactly what I'm thinking? And is your ego tough enough that you can accept that? Because I don't mean any disrespect. I don't like to hurt people. But when the diplomacy runs out, I'm just going to pop off. And I want to, can we agree on the front end that what was our core value? We give and receive fearless feedback.
Right.
And that became this mantra of, hey man, can I give you some fearless feedback? And that was an easy way for me to introduce to Ronnie, hey, this is going to sting a little bit, or I'm afraid to say this, but I think I need to. Is it safe? Yes.
So I remember I was driving downtown Grand Rapids. I was dropping my son off at his friend's house, Jack. And pull in the driveway. I drop him off. Me and you are on the phone. Say goodbye. Get back out. I'm back on the main road. Downtown Grand Rapids. There's a Meijer on the corner. I pull up. I remember there's a football field right there on this hill, a school back there, and our volume has escalated, to say it nicely, to nearly, like, you're aggressive towards me. I'm like, dude, I just, right? Like, I'm like, no, but, and you stopped. And I was sitting at the stoplight. There was on the corner, I was at the stoplight. There was this girl walking across in this strip mall, and there was a barbecue wings place back there. And I can't remember the grocery store. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm standing there. I can picture it in my brain. And the whole thing stops. You stop the conversation and you say, Ronnie, I just want to appreciate the fact that you've made this really safe for me to just blurt everything out. Like, that I can literally yell at you and we can get in this fight and that it's okay. And I remember sitting back and thinking, and like, after kind of debriefing that, being like, this is what it means to, because it was respect. It wasn't disrespectful. And I don't want to have people misinterpret this.
Right.
But this is what it means to be completely and utterly in disagreement and have a knockdown, drag out argument, but be very respectful and honoring and also coachable, right? Where it's like, dude, I just disagree. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I do remember we finished it up and you mentioned, you're like, look, it's your decision. No matter which way we go, I'll back you up, as if, I was 100% in agreement. And I think in that case, I actually made a decision that you didn't agree with. And guys, I think this is key, and that is the ability to be coachable and to stick by what you believe, but then go down a path that you may not understand in order to learn, even if the guy you're talking to doesn't know how to explain it. Because I think I remember being like, dude, just trust me. I don't know how to explain this to you, but this is the direction we're going to go. And my butt's on the line just as much as yours is, right? Probably even more. Mm-hmm. And I've been through this a time or two. And I think that lesson there that I learned is, I actually really love having the Jonos and the strong personality on the team who cares.
Yeah.
Right. And that is something to invite from a lead. And it's something that creates this mutual respect that allows us to win. And your ability to kind of be coachable and to learn, and that the way you perceive it and that attitude, kind of like that running through the wall, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to run this direction. And okay. Right. Like, that's where I'm going, and being able to harness that energy. I really love how you turned these really crazy scenarios in your life, and you were able to frame them in your mind instead of being like, I'm this bad person, I'm this, I'm blah, blah, and you're like, that was a learning experience. I've learned. What have I taken? What does that look like? What's all the bad stuff that's happened? What can I adjust? Where can I go? And then at our moment, our story, this kind of dark hour and coming under and still running. So I want to know from there, you're in this spot, we've connected. What do you think is the best decision you've made along this journey? And what started bringing you out of this, right? Like, because I would say this is probably the turning point. Obviously, we didn't just get out of it in a second, but I think this was the turning point. What was like the best decision you've made that you're like most proud of? And how did that lead you on this trajectory where it's like this resistance started to fall away?
There was this moment we were on our way to a family vacation, and talk about being vulnerable. But this will, I think, set the tone for uh, the realization that I came to. We were on our way to a family vacation, and I was on a conference call with you and your former business partner. And it was very evident that I was not performing to the level that the company needed it to perform. Like, there's no getting around that. And as much as I would try to justify it or talk, because I was not lazy. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of work, but there gets to be a point when you realize if I'm running someone else's play and it's not working, something has to change. And the conversation, well, I would say it was a spirited conversation, and we got off the phone, and I think this is the closest I've ever come to having a nervous breakdown. Like, I'm in the back seat of the car, my wife and my daughter in the front seat. We're driving to a cabin in New Mexico, and I lose it. Like a toddler throwing a tantrum in a car seat. I lose it. Full send, screaming. It was bad. Like, I'm embarrassed about it. And I remember in my fit saying the words, I need a win. So we go to this cabin, and I was basically a hermit for the week. And I'm, still working, but they're off, climbing mountains and stand-up paddleboarding. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. So between acquisition and disposition calls for you guys and doing a lot of searching on YouTube, I was like, I got to go. I got to find my own thing. I am not good at this. I got to find something else. And eventually came to the realization of, you know what, I got this real estate license. Let me just go use it. Right. And that following week, we had the conversation of, listen, let's break up while we still like each other. And we parted company, and I started down the path of running my own play. And I remember saying there was a freedom that came. This is the answer to your question. What was my best decision? There was a freedom that came along with, if this doesn't work, I want it to be because of me. Because I would blame you guys. I would blame the model. I would blame Ronnie doesn't understand, or, something's off, or all these bad decisions. Like, I needed it to, if it was going to fail, I needed it to be because the guy who thought he was the smartest guy in the room, although I would never admit that, it didn't work, bro. And I needed to go back to the pendulum swing over to being an entrepreneur again. And I didn't, a lot of, when I've shared this story with people, the number one response that I get is, I don't believe you. But that was August of 2020. And I didn't close my first real estate transaction on the retail side. I wholesaled a deal in there, but my first real estate transaction I didn't close until March of 2021. And aside from the one wholesale deal that I did during that time, I didn't make any money. But I was out, I was meeting with people, I was running my play. And is it okay to share some of these numbers?
Yeah.
In 2021, I made $175,000 running my play. And it was a great decision that I needed to do. And it turned things around for me. This year we'll do I'm at 375 if I don't contract anything else for the rest of the year.
Can I cut you off and add? I really want to hover there, because I think that there's something that I resonate with, and especially with, you're smarter than everybody, you're doing what other people say. What I ran into was something similar. Our stories are different, but something very similar in that mindset of I'm compromising because they want this. I'm compromising because they want this. I'm compromising because they want this. And I remember, so somebody really close to me, they bought a house, and his wife came up to me and my wife, and they were talking. They're like, I don't really like this house, right? Like, I think we're going to pass. And then this person that I'm really close to, he came up to me and was like, I don't really like this house. I think we're going to pass. They both told us that separately. Well, when they were talking to each other, it was, well, what do you think? Well, it's all right, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, we could probably do this. And, we could do that. And then they're like, okay, well, I guess, he wants it. So let's buy the house. And they end up buying this house that they both don't like, but they weren't on the same page because they were trying to give preference.
Yeah.
And in my life and in the story you just shared, there's something really powerful when you're around other people. Sometimes it's hard to just say, give me some freedom, let me run it, and let me be responsible for the result. A lot of times we want to compromise, but in the compromise of that person and you're compromising on something that's subpar. And I think this is why vision is so important, like proper vision and vision of this is what I want. And someone being able to say, this is what I want. If you want to come on my team, this is where I'm going. This is what I want. And when you were able to do that, even though you didn't make money for, what was that? 8 months?
Yeah.
7 months. Even though it was a long time, you were doing what you believed in. And and you took the full responsibility, that extreme ownership on this is me, and I'm not like, this is nobody else's fault.
Right.
And you were willing to die or fail with it being on you. And in a similar way, for me, having business partners and having even employees and compromising for what they want versus the direction I want, only I have all the information. Only you have all the information in your life. And so there is an aspect, guys, where if what you want aligns with what someone else's wants, you can partner, and both of your guys' self-interest and alignment will cause you guys to rocket ship. But if the values and principles of someone else and the values and principles that you have and the visions that you have differ, and someone can't, I want to say, I don't want to say respect, but if you can't come under one person or the other, then it's going to break. And that's not a bad thing. It just is what it is, right? It's, do I believe where he's going? Do I want to partner with him? And do I want to take it? Or do I have my own internal thing that I have to accomplish? Can I do that with someone else or not? And making that decision, I don't know how many times, John, that this is probably one of my biggest mistakes in my entire business career. And I'll just throw it out there for everyone. A biggest mistake that I've learned from is sometimes you need to stop complaining based on the results that somebody else is getting. Like, I remember I've said so many times, like, dude, if I was to do this, we would get blank. If I was to do this, we'd get blank. And that's bad leadership. You're holding someone's faults against them. Good leadership is, dude, I can see you being this person. Like, I can see the fact of you being a successful real estate investor. Like, I can see you negotiating amazing deals. Like, you give that hope in front of them. You show them that you believe in them. And you say, these are the tweaks that we need to make. And then if they don't make them and they go, then you need to go separate directions. But you're giving them that hope when you're leading them, or you step in and you show them. And one of the things I've learned over time is when you're training salespeople or you're training people or people are on your team, you don't want to just order them around. Tier 1 level of do it is do it while they're watching you.
Mm.
Tier number 2 is give them a recording of you doing it in the past. That's tier number 2. That's not tier number 1. Doing it with them right there next to you is tier number 1. Tier number 2, give them a recording of you doing it in the past. Tier number 3 is being present while they're doing it. Right? But that's tier number 3, because if you never step up to tier number 1, they're going to be like, dude, you're not doing it. Like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Right? And then tier number 4 is give them training and say, hey, go through this training and learn on your own. But if you want, there's this other saying that says, you know, when you put a group of monkeys into a cage and the pull shocks them, right? All the monkeys will stop, right? Well, and they'll stop doing it. Well, then if the pull stops, they will just not attack the pull. And if a new monkey comes in and that monkey goes up to the pull, the other monkeys will actually grab them and pull them back, right? And it's this learned environment, but it took that initial leader. It took that initial circumstance for everyone to learn. And as a leader, it's on us to do that. And I think that's something that is just a strong, amazing decision that you decided to do. Even with us having a great relationship and saying, you know what? I need to run my own play. Like, I need this in my life. And, you know, there was a lot of learning, and I want to get into stuff that I could have learned out of this, because I've learned a lot. But I've also said, we've had hard conversations about where I'm at too, where it's like, dude, you need to run your play, right? You've told me that. And I think that this is such a key aspect to what you guys are doing is believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You're on the path to freedom, guys that are listening, and even you, John, right? And even me, I'm speaking to myself, is believe in yourself. Have an aim, have a target, have faith in that belief, picture and visualize what it's like to win, create a plan, put in the work, and man, just run after it. And I think that is so, so powerful. And you'll see that at a common theme, you know, with a lot of just successful stories is at some point they had to say what Richard Branson said, screw it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. At some point there was this aspect of like, I don't care what my mom says. I don't care what my dad says. I don't care what my wife says. I don't care what my son says. I don't care what all my friends say. I don't care what that dude says. This is what I think. And I'm going to put myself on the line. And if I fail, it's on me. It's not because I'm this grumpy old man and be like, oh man, well, you know, I should have done this. You're willing to have the hard conversation. You're willing to run. And dude, I just want to commend you for that. I think that's awesome.
That's so good.
So you go off on your own and you build this really, I mean, operating in this $1 million real estate space. You've partnered with a new partner now. You guys are growing. You've started and running the Selling North Dallas channel, which is just phenomenal. You're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
How do you stay disciplined through all of this? Like, what are some of the routines or the thought patterns or maybe places you've gone for help? Like, how have you stayed disciplined in your life, your mind, your business through all of this? Unpack that for me, because I think this is really powerful.
Man, I think it's funny to me because if you enjoy doing something, it's easy to do it. If you just really look forward to getting on your bicycle and riding your bicycle for 20 miles, it's easy to do it. I like being around people. I like having meaningful conversations. So what I've done, well, let me preface that. I don't like being around people. I like being around my people. I like certain personality types drain my energy and certain personality types give me energy. I've just been fortunate enough, and I feel like this is a gift and a blessing to recognize that early enough that it's easy for me to go and do that because it's fun. It gives me energy. And it's easy for me to be disciplined at something that I enjoy doing. I would say that I'm not a disciplined person at things that I don't enjoy. And that's a path that I'm walking through right now. There are jobs that I have within our organization today that I do not want, but I'm the best guy for the job. So I got to do it. And then there's, calendaring and building systems and putting people around you to make up for a deficiency in discipline.
Can I give some pushback there? And I want to challenge. And how do you do things you enjoy when you're losing money? Right? Is it finding something in the midst of it? Like I can process that actually as like, okay, I'm going through this hard time. I don't enjoy this, but I do enjoy talking to people. So I want to stay around people, and that motivates me, even though my circumstances are out of my control. So I can see an element there, but at the same time, it's like, I'm constantly going down. How do I get out? Is it like there was a tipping point that was like I couldn't control how far down I went? I just had to embrace it. Was it like at some point through this process, there's got to be, it's not just do what you enjoy, because it's like, well, I enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons in my house with my friends. I don't enjoy being out here on the street and losing money doing these real estate deals. Like I want to challenge that a little bit and be like, it's got to be.
Let me clarify that
with where you're at.
Let me clarify that. That's a really good point. What I figured out is, so I used to have as I said, I'm a diva. I can have a flair for the dramatic. I had a crippling addiction to the video game Fortnite. And it helped because I was also working with the youth of the church that we were attending at the time. And a lot of those guys played Fortnite. So it was easy, right? Given my druthers, I honestly could have played Fortnite 8 hours a day. Like when I say crippling, it was bad. In 2021, I think the last time I played Fortnite was in October of 2021. So the year that I made 174,000, I played an embarrassing amount of Fortnite. Now, luckily, I'm in an industry, real estate, where you don't have to sell one every day or every week, and you can make decent money, right? 174,000, that's a lot of money for me. What I figured out is I enjoy being around people that are trying to grow. And for a period, I enjoy being around people that think I'm amazing. So what I did is I just put myself in rooms where people thought I was amazing. So I joined a real estate brokerage, and they would have team meetings, and I would just put my shirt on and go up there. And real estate agents are kind of a fickle bunch. They love to sit around and talk about how amazing they are, but a lot of them, there's not a lot of depth. And if you start asking questions, they realize there's no depth, and they realize they're swimming with a shark. And what would happen is they would start asking me questions. Now, I've been at this time a licensed realtor for, let's say 5 years. Never sold a house that wasn't my own. Never bought a house that wasn't my own. But I'm a licensed realtor with 5 years in the business. Now, I've built a call center. We talked about that. So I had some industry knowledge. And what I figured out is I didn't have to know a lot about real estate to talk to real estate agents. And I would wield my powerful sword of how to interact with people, and I was attracting people. So they would start asking me questions, and I got a dopamine hit off of that. Now, pause the tape. I'm not making any money, right? But I look the part, and I can speak well, and I'm around these other agents who are making money. And as we say in Texas, they weren't smart enough to pour piss out of a boot. Like, these are not masters of the universe. These are wing-ding straight up, straight down real estate agents that are successful, and a lot of them can't find their butt with both hands, which made me gave me hope. I'm gonna freaking crush this. And then I got my first deal under contract, and then I got a call from an agent that I met there. Hey, you're an investor. Like the last year I worked for you, Ronnie, I bought 66 houses. Now, we didn't close 66 houses, but I contracted for your company 66 houses. So I would tell people that. My last year as an acquisition manager, I bought 66 houses. Look, I'm really good with this. Approaching real estate investment is different than retail. What's retail? So I was able to talk and impress these people by just sharing what I had done. So coming from contribution, not being a fake, not bragging, but they would inevitably, you're in real estate, the conversation turns to, well, how many doors do you own? And do you flip? And do you do this and that? And when they found out I knew a little something about that, they would start sending me deals. And so that's how I was able, I didn't have to be disciplined at it. Number one, because I'm in an industry where I didn't have to do it every day. So there was a low burnout factor. I was around people that were enamored with me. If enamored is probably too strong of a word, but I'll use it. So it was fun to be around them. Yeah. And they see me as the economist as it relates to real estate investing. And I got labeled, oh, he does investment stuff. I'm like, no, I have a license. Well, yeah, but they kind of pigeonholed me into this niche of invest. And I got deals because of it. And actually called Ronnie on one of those. Like, hey, man, we hadn't spoken in a while. You want to do a deal together? Of course. So that's how I was able to be disciplined at it. It was fun doing it. And I was in an industry that I didn't have to do it every day. So, hey, I've been playing Fortnite for a couple of hours. There's a happy hour, which that feels like that's all real estate agents do, is go to lunch and go to happy hour. Sure, I'll go to happy hour, and I would get up next to other agents. Hey, how are you getting your business? And they couldn't explain it to me, which gave me hope, because I built a business on developing cold markets by cold calling, just listed and just sold, and circle prospecting, and not working my sphere, not working referrals. And a lot of the agents that I was around, they couldn't explain how to go hunt for new business. And I knew how to do that, having not been a successful real estate agent myself, but I knew how to do that. So that gave me hope that, man, I'm going to do this well. And then the phone would ring, and it's my buddy. Hey, we're ready to buy. Can you help us? Well, because I've been around real estate, I was able to talk it. The first time I got a call to go sell a house, I had to call my broker and say, how do I get into this house? I didn't know I'd open a box.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, let's hop on a Zoom call. And she's like holding it up for me. And, you got to have this app. Well, where do I get that? Well, you got to call the CCAR and set up with this. But the prospect did not care, because I wasn't sharing. I didn't tell them, hey, I'm brand new at this. I don't want to screw you up. I was just like, look, man, you do not have to be real smart to be a real estate agent. We're not putting satellites in space. There's some nuance to the market, but I got all that stuff. And they're like, okay, what do we do? All right, well, we go here. And they would buy, and I would make money. And when I would get stuck, I would call my friend Holly, who is my business partner today, whom I've known since 1998. Hey, what do I do here? Oh, it's real easy. You just do this. Okay, great. And I call my client, and I would do that. And it was fun because I was making more money than I'd ever made. I'm barely working from a clock standpoint. I'm getting to play a ridiculous amount of Fortnite. It's like, what a country. Why is everyone not a real estate agent? So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, and you don't have your real estate license, why not?
There's this course for $3,999, and we're going to sell you another 80 grand after that before you do it.
Out of order.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. That's amazing. That's such a good answer, and there's a lot of good tips here, guys. So as you guys are watching this, and if you find this valuable, man, share this conversation with others. Go back and re-listen to that, right? Through not only what I would like to say is kind of like, the valley of the shadow of death, right? That dark hour. You found hacks to get through it, and you were coachable, and you were learning, and the journey has led you to where you're at today. You said earlier you believe that God works in mysterious ways, and guys, sometimes the darkest things we go through, right? Sometimes the trauma, the pain, all of that makes us more stoic, makes us more in control. It gives us more tools. It makes us more compassionate. And so even though it sucks, right? Like, even though it really sucks, it's actually working more on you than I think we realize going through it. And it turns us into the men and the women that we are today. And people we can be proud of. So guys, go back and listen to that. I think that is absolutely crucial and killer and so good. And if you found this value, go check out Selling North Dallas. Share this podcast with your friends, and check us out on YouTube at Ronald Walker. And I'd just if you find it valuable, hit that thumbs up for me. That being said, so at the end of these, by the way, I appreciate you just being really vulnerable and opened up. I think a lot of people don't share the pain that they go through. And, we think about the hero's journey. If there's one thing that America, or us as Americans, really, I think, is inspiring, cause us to move, is kind of that underdog, so that redemption kind of come back. But we feel like we're losers when we're going through it, right? We feel like we shouldn't have to go through it, right? There's this mentality. So I just want to thank you, man, for just being totally transparent with the audience. And because I think a lot of people go through it, and a lot of people don't realize that it is normal, right? It is normal to hit resistance. It is normal to go through a dark hour of some kind where you are literally in the grind, and you are nearly out of business. You are nearly on the edge of bankruptcy. You are nearly in the edge of losing your family. You are like, there are all kinds of things, from bankruptcy to foreclosure to divorce to all kinds of just situations that everybody runs into different dark hours. And it's part of the process, guys. Like hard things happen to good people. And I really believe it makes us better, and being able to share that journey towards freedom specifically for this. I'm just really appreciative for you to do that, because I think as we, maintain that North Star, man, freedom is around the corner. And there's an aspect of just trusting in yourself, bolstering your knowledge and your skill, building relationships, right? I like to say that real estate's three things, and I think you've embodied this in your story. It's understanding, it's knowledge, right? It's understanding tools, skills, learning, because you need to know what to do before you can actually do it. It's your network, and building your network of people around you, right? It's that environment that, it's your Rolodex, people and who knows you, that you can call on for help, build that before you need it, right? And I think you've done a fantastic job of doing that. And then 3, it's getting in front of people. It's looking at houses and leads. And I think your story just embodies, even through all of this, you learned, you're building a network, and you're constantly getting in front and building that system. And those tools and going through that system allowed you to be prepared for the opportunity that came up.
Yeah.
And you were able to take advantage of it. So, man, thank you so much for doing that and sharing. So at the end of these podcasts, these conversations, I like to do just a speed round of knowledge, right? A speed round of value per se. And so if you will play this game with me, get your Jono thinking cap on, put those glasses on, and right now in your business, question number 1. If you had to track only one thing in your business, what would that one thing be? What would you track? What's the most important activity, number, behavior, and what you're doing in your business that you need to make sure is operating at a peak level?
I would have to say the one metric that I would track is outbound phone calls. And if you wanted to drill down even more, it would be outbound phone calls to people that already know you, like you, and trust you. But if you don't have that benefit, just make phone calls. It takes care of everything else.
Talking to people. That's really good. I love that. That's really good. What book or resource, I've kind of widened that a little bit, but what book or resource would you recommend someone who's wanting to get into investing in real estate specifically? It doesn't have to be a real estate book, but something that you think really helped you or you think is pivotable, like pivotable. I don't think I said that right? It's paramount. Let's put it that way. In their journey along the way with skills, knowledge, whatever that is, what would that book be?
It would have to be Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think if you know how to navigate a human conversation, everything else you can learn very quickly. The very first phone call I ever made for Ronnie Walker, I got the property under contract. I was not working for him. This was a test case study. He said, call, here's the phone number, and call this person. And with about 5 minutes worth of coaching, I called, did my discovery, called Ronnie back. We had a couple of back and forths, and we ended up getting the property under contract. I didn't know anywhere close to the depth. Ronnie's forgotten more about investing in real estate than I've ever learned. But if you just know how to talk to people and giving them an out, which is my favorite segment of that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, hands down, would be the one that I would get people on.
You know, you said something to me a long time ago, and you saying that just reminded me, and I think I want to bring it back up. I asked you, gosh, it had to be like 3 years ago now. I asked you a question. I was like, man, if you had any superpower, what would it be? And dude, I'm like 99%. If I'm wrong, correct me. But you said, I'd love to be able to know what people are thinking.
Yeah.
Because if I could know what they're thinking, I could accomplish anything I want. You know what I'm saying? Like I could accomplish any goal. And obviously we can't read people's minds, but I do think knowing what they're thinking and what you're touching on is you know how to navigate a human conversation.
Yeah.
And you know how to connect. You know how to empathize. Like empathy is so powerful.
It feels like a Jedi mind trick when you crack the code on how to work with people. And it doesn't work with everybody. But there's enough in there where if you can start to figure out your system, your style, it's for the people that I can't convert, I don't think they're convertible.
Right.
They're not giving their business to me. They're giving their business to their brother-in-law. I just happen to be in the way.
Yeah, and the way I like to do it. So I actually have a thing I wrote up here on the wall on my on my piece of glass. That's my whiteboard. It says, "We're not trying to convince anybody."
Oh, I love that.
I'm just trying to remove roadblocks.
That we say that all the time on the channel. It's like we are not here to convince you of anything, and convincing people of things is exhausting. Yes. We're consulting, and I think the type of people that we want to work with lean into that, and it makes it feel like magic.
Yeah.
And it's not, you're just being authentic, and the people that aren't going to use you anyway, or don't like you, or they don't like the sound of your voice, or you say too much or whatever, like they're not your guy. But the people that appreciate authenticity and they learn how to trust you,
intent is more important than technique, guys, because intent will be able to be transferred, right? If you have a friendly, helpful intent, that is so much more powerful than saying the exact right word because you read it in a sales book.
That's right.
2 years ago.
That's right.
I love that, man. All right. Question number 3 is, What does Jono do to intentionally network and mastermind with other people in real estate and business? Actually, I think this is a good general. Like, what do you do to network and mastermind?
So, can I plug the networking organization that I'm
Of
a part of?
course. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. With whatever you do. Yep.
Yeah, Master Networks is a great organization. I'll let you go to their website, and I believe it's masternetworks.com. But if that's not it, do a Google search. Sorry, Chaz, if you're watching this. Um, Getting in the room where things happen is so important. And for someone that enjoys networking and enjoys being around people that are trying to get better, it's a networking group. It's really more an education environment masquerading as a networking group. So people show up thinking, I'm going to trade business cards. And when it's not this forced, okay, did you bring all your leads this week? All right, well, two more times and you're out of here. But it's, hey, let's build authentic relationships with these other entrepreneurs who are, in a lot of cases, going through the same things that you are or have been through. It's this perfect environment of people are intentional about coming, and they do a really great job. Their national event is Connect. The YouTube coach and the mentor that I both met through Master Network. So I couldn't recommend that organization specifically enough if you are trying to grow as a person or you're trying to grow a business. And if they don't have one in your area, it's easy to start one.
Dude, that's awesome. Anything else? Any other connections or what you do to intentionally mastermind?
I've heard it said you have to be an all timer, meaning, or have to have all timers, meaning you're constantly wearing the hat. You're constantly on the lookout for people that are open to connection. So if you watch the channel, you'll see I have an affinity for this restaurant called Salsas. It's a restaurant, Mexican restaurant right here in the town that I live in. And every time I go in there, I see somebody I know, which makes it fun to go, right? I usually go to the bar. I'll sit there. I'll have a margarita. I'm trying to cut down on my margaritas, but I'll have a margarita. I'll eat some chips and salsa. I'll order food to go, and then I bring it back to Katie. So that is a process that I have when we're like, what are we going to do for dinner? It can be something so simple as, what are we going to do for dinner? I'm going to go get salsas. And if I get there and I don't know somebody, I'll sit at the bar and I sit next to someone and I practice. How's it going? How's the game? How's the margarita? What are you having? And sometimes people are very short or they're engaged with the other person that they're talking to, but it's uncanny how many times people sit back. And now I'm engaged in a conversation with two completely different strangers. And excuse me, I have no agenda for real estate, for anything. I'm just practicing making friends. And the way that I do that is I just ask them questions. Hey, man, I really like your shirt. What kind of watch is that? Wow, that's cool. Are you a watch guy? I'm not there to talk about me. I'm there to ask them questions about them. And it hasn't yet led to a real estate transaction. But what it does is it helps me keep the saw sharp. And I guess you could say that's a form of networking. But what ends up happening is now when I get there, the bartender knows what I want to drink. They know what I want to eat. And that gets comments by the people over here like, how did you do that? Like, well, I'm in here probably more than I should be. But it opens me up to conversation. So being a creature of habit has also led to lots of practice. So then when I get to the game, I'm warmed up, I'm ready to go, and I can jump straight into it. And it's not this, I've been in a hole for a week and now I've got to be on stage.
You got those reps in, bro. You got those reps in.
It's reps. Yeah. Get your reps in.
All right. Last question before we wrap up is, how much do you spend each year on personal development?
Oh gosh. So between the two coaches I have, I'm just over 104,000 a year. That's not books. That's not. We went to Tony Robbins. He was in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. That was $4,000. I'm going to Vegas in October. That'll be another 4,000 or 5,000. But just on my two mentors, just over 100. So I would probably guess somewhere in the 140 to 150 range.
That's amazing, dude. That's awesome. All right, man. If actually one more thing. Sorry. One more question. Psych. If you lost it all today, this is my last one. If you lost it all today, if you lost everything you had, what would you do?
Do I have money?
No. You went bankrupt.
Do I have my cell phone?
Yes.
I would start driving for dollars, and I would call Ronnie and say, "Hey, man, I lost it all. I need to make some money. I'm going to go find us some deals." And I would wholesale myself back into business. If I still have my real estate license, I would door knock and go to happy hours and networking events. Every title company, every training, I would just go and be in the room, and I would build it back up with my network.
Dude, that's awesome. All right, Jono, thank you so much for just jumping on, having a really this is amazing conversation. Thank you so much. How can people connect with you?
www.sellingnorthdallas.com takes you straight to our YouTube page. Subscribe, like the videos, consume the content. And if you know somebody looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, do not send them to me. Just send them to the channel. That's our filter.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome, man.
Thank you for your time, Ronnie. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely.